with another episode of Sweet Jesus. Taste and see that the Lord is good. Ice cream is sweet, but Jesus is far, far sweeter. Who is my neighbor? That's what we're talking about today. Who is your neighbor? Scott's sort of my neighbor. He's like right here. He actually doesn't live very far from us, so more than one way. But that's kind of what we're talking about today with this next parable. We're going through the parable of the Good Samaritan. Perhaps more appropriate than we'd like. Touching on some interesting current event type things. And make sure you like and share and subscribe and all that kind of stuff. And, oh, by the way, there's these kids' books, the Open Arms book, Connecting People to Jesus, great publications. Find them on Amazon, openarmslidell.org. You can make a contribution there. But let's dig in. You read last time. I'm reading this time. This is Luke chapter 10. There's some interesting context maybe we'll get into before and after. But here we go. And behold, a lawyer stood up to put him, that is Jesus, to the test, saying, Teacher, what shall I do to inherit eternal life? He said to him, What is written in the law? How do you read it? And he answered, You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself. And Jesus said to him, You have answered correctly. Do this, and you will live. But he, desiring to justify himself, said to Jesus, And who is my neighbor? Jesus replied, A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he fell among robbers, who stripped him and beat him and departed, leaving him half dead. Now by chance a priest was going down the road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. So likewise a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he journeyed, came to where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. He went to him and bound up his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he set him on his own animal and brought him to an inn and took care of him. And the next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper, saying, Take care of him, and whatever more you spend, I will repay you when I come back. Which of these 3 do you think proved to be a neighbor to the man who fell among the robbers? He said, The one who showed him mercy. And Jesus said to him, You go and do likewise. So, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Who is your neighbor? It sounds kind of similar to another parable of the rich young man. In other words, someone coming up to test him or to get a very well. He was a lawyer, so he was really looking very into the law and exactly what does this mean and what do I have to do to follow this, right? That's kind of what I took. He took a very legalistic lawyer look at what was written in the law. So,
yeah, so a lawyer is getting into the details, right? Looking for, lawyers are always looking out for the best interests of their clients. Theoretically, at least, that's the goal. But because they're looking out for the best interests of their clients and not necessarily the truth, right? They're trying to maximize the gains that they might be able to get and minimize any losses or penalties or punishments, right? So it's an interesting approach. Like, here's this lawyer, and hey, what do I need to do to inherit eternal life? Which comes on the heel. This kind of comes on the heels of the 72 are sent out. They come back. They're rejoicing about all the great stuff that they were able to do. And Jesus says, don't rejoice in this. Rejoice that your names are written in heaven. And then it says, Jesus rejoiced in the Holy Spirit. He's talking about how you look at you're getting these things that are revealed to you and all this kind of stuff. Rejoice. And then this lawyer stands up and he says, okay, so how do I inherit eternal life? If that's the main thing, how do I get there? And again, it says he's putting him to the test. So he's trying to find a way to perhaps trap Jesus by saying something that isn't right. John chapter 5, and actually lots of parts in John and the rest of the New Testament, it's faith in him as the Savior of the world. He's not ready to say that yet. It's not his hour. So if he comes right out and says something like that, he's sort of in trouble. So he's asking a question and allowing him to sort of lead to his own undoing with his own words, sort of. And he says it's the greatest commandment, and the second is like it, right? We see that in the New Testament, the Old Testament. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and your neighbor as yourself. Jesus is like, all right, you got it. He's not going to fall for the trap. But he is wanting to justify himself. And that's really, I think that's actually kind of at the heart of this, and at, what's happening before and what comes after. So there's Martha and Mary afterward. Martha is going nuts, trying to justify herself. She's welcoming Jesus into her home. She's not putting him to the test like this lawyer is doing, but she's still trying to justify herself by having the best hospitality, right? The best food, the best welcoming committee, the best whatever it is. And she's wearing herself out. And Mary isn't trying to justify herself at all. She's just hanging out at Jesus' feet listening. So the lawyer is trying to justify himself. Just like the 72, they come back and they're like, whoa, even the demons are subject to us. We are so good. We are so special. Like, look at what we did. And Jesus says, no, don't rejoice that the demons are subject to you, but that your names are written in heaven. So there's actually a calling back to grace in all of this. And the way that he does it through this parable of the Good Samaritan is to say, if you're going to justify yourself by your actions, let me tell you how significant those actions really are. Like what the calling really is, what it means to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and your neighbor as yourself. It's not as easy as you think it is. There is no simple answer like, well, if we would just do this, everything would be good.
Check a box.
If we would just do this, we would be in. And the world would be a better place, and blah, 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 blah. And he says, he shatters the whole thing. Who is my neighbor? Well, let me tell you a story about a guy going from Jerusalem to Jericho, falls among robbers, stripped, beaten, left for dead. There's a priest, walks by on the other side. A Levite walks by on the other side. These are both people that should know better, both important people, both people who are probably trying to justify themselves, not by doing the thing. Excuse me, I don't know what got this frog in my throat here. But not by doing the thing that God has commanded, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and your neighbor as yourself, but by this performative function within the institutions of society, the religious institutions of the day. But a Samaritan. Who are the Samaritans? Not generally people that were loved by the people listening to this story.
Right. Mm-hmm.
These are sort of like
part of society that everybody looks down on, right?
yeah, everybody looks down on, and they're sort of on the outside. They're sort of, but they're actually not completely separate. They're actually, it's like they're close enough to being like the people that he's talking to that people have to distinguish themselves from it. You know, like in some of our theology books, when you go to seminary, in Lutheran seminary in particular, there's a lot of stuff in there about Catholics and Presbyterians and Methodists and all these different denominations. And you're like, well, why are they talk so much about these other people? Why are they always like hating on them? It seems like maybe not usually hatefully, but they're clearly going after them. And I remember, and this makes sense. I've heard about this many times. Why? Well, because they're actually the closest. And because they're the closest, but you disagree with them, you have to sort of like draw the line in the sand and remind everybody that you're not them. That you're not the Samaritan. You're a good Jew. Samaritans rejected most of the scriptures. They pretty much only accepted the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Old Testament or the Hebrew Bible. And there's a lot of other things that they didn't observe or follow or care about. Part of that is because they're from sort of the northern part of the traditional territory of the nation of Israel. The northern kingdom fell, I believe, first, and so they had a lot more intermingling with other people that were not Jewish, and were not as strict about following things. They didn't have the rest of the Bible, the prophets in particular. They didn't have all this other stuff, so they're just different. And the people that want to be the most faithful in the other parts of sort of the Jewish world, they had to say, whoa. Don't get sucked in. All right? They look great. They talk a good game, but watch out, And, man, there's an awful lot of that going on today in all kinds of realms. We'll just, I guess, leave it there. But that's the Samaritan. He's the guy who, without all this extra stuff, had the basics, the Pentateuch, and love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and your neighbor as yourself. And he just helps the guy.
I thought it interesting. He says that a priest was going down the road, and then the next one was a Levite. Well, aren't the Levites the priests? Or could it be a Levite that's not yet a priest, or are Levites the ones that are just more strictly in?
I don't know a whole lot, but there are, about the intimate details of all of that. But there's
some reason why there's
some differences, distinctions between sort of people working in the temple. There are only certain people that could do that, and Levites. But
so a priest had to be a Levite, but not necessarily every Levite was a priest. Maybe.
Yeah, I think that's how I would say it, without knowing a whole lot about the distinctions there. But
it would definitely specify them as being, like you said, this was a Jewish person. Would draw the line, right? He's a Levite. He's not a Samaritan. There's a difference.
Yeah, they're people that should know better. They're actually, if they really cared about the distinctions between Jews and Samaritans, and they saw a fellow Jew on the side of the road, why didn't they help him? You know, that you'd think that they would care about, but they didn't. They actually didn't. And the Samaritan comes by, and he doesn't seem to care. And of course, I am making an assumption there. He's saying a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho. So he, maybe it's not the right assumption, but I'm assuming he's a Jewish man.
Oh,
right?
okay, I got you.
So the guy that's beat up and on the side of the road, and here's this Samaritan who comes and helps him. His own fellow Jews didn't help him, but this Samaritan, half-breed, kind of,
semi-Jewish person.
Yeah, exactly.
but different.
He helps him. He has compassion on him, bound up his wounds, and sort of went the extra mile. Excuse me. Yeah, shocking, unbelievable, right? And he kind of ends up with this. So who was the neighbor to the man, right? And it's the one who showed mercy. Go and do likewise, right? So he sort of flipped the question on its head. Instead of who is my neighbor, he hasn't said, oh, here are the people that you are supposed to help, and here are the people that you're not supposed to help. He didn't say that, because that's actually what they're doing in the story, right? Oh, well, I don't have to help that person because going back to their roles, priest, Levite, working in the temple, they're protecting their ability to serve in those places, right? So, like, I have to serve in that way, so I can't do this and jeopardize my ability to serve in these other areas. Or justify myself, really, because, man, there are an awful lot of pastors. We get sucked into this real easy because we're human, but also sometimes it's like, whoa, man, you care a little bit too much about this. It's real easy to get sucked into this justifying of ourselves. And that's what they're doing. This is how I identify. This is what I've built my identity on. This is how I help. This is how I serve. And this is, people tell me I'm great and wonderful and amazing because I have these roles, and I can't jeopardize that by helping somebody who may actually be dead. They may be thinking, oh, this guy's dead, and if I touch a dead body, I can't do what I would normally do. So a Samaritan walking by just says, oh, here's a person who needs help. I will be a neighbor. I will be a neighbor.
Yeah, not standing here or sitting here looking that as my neighbor,
mm-hmm.
and then identifying them, but looking at myself and saying, I'm the neighbor. That's what you were saying about flipping it upside down.
Yeah. Yeah, I am the neighbor. I am the one who has mercy, shows mercy. And
so what is do you know what the word neighbor meant? In my mind, a neighbor is someone that lives next to me.
Yeah, that's...
So you live in a neighborhood. It's like these are your technically, but even somebody that lives on another street, I don't necessarily consider them in my neighborhood. I wouldn't necessarily consider them a neighbor. If someone asked me, oh, do you know, I would say probably, well, they live in my neighborhood, but on another street.
Yeah.
I don't know them, in other words.
Yeah, when I introduced us or started the podcast today, I said, oh, Scott, my neighbor.
Right.
Well, not really, in the sense that you don't live next door to me.
Right. So that's why I was curious.
Neighborhood. Yeah, no, today we definitely look at it as, oh, my neighbor. To the left, to the right, my across the street neighbor.
Right.
Maybe behind me neighbor, but not anyone else is not a neighbor, right? I think Jesus is redefining it here, right? I mean, that's pretty clear. He is redefining whatever it was assumed to be then. But I think it would be, and maybe he's not redefining it as much as he's reminding people what the intent was originally. But I think they probably would have interpreted it as, their family or their sort of their people, you know, love the other person that God has put in your life as yourself. But Jesus in the Beatitudes, he actually kind of goes after this a little bit. He's like, you've heard it said, love your friends and hate your enemies, or love your neighbors and hate your enemies. What word does he use there? But I say to you, right? He flips that on its head too. You have heard it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. That's Matthew 5:43 and 44. So a neighbor is not an enemy. If we're thinking about the context, your Old Testament neighbor is probably like your people, and people that are sort of in relationship and in the typical reciprocal type of thing that goes on in societies throughout history. Reciprocity is like the number one. Like it spans every single time and culture. Reciprocity is just a very human thing. You do something for me, I do something for you. You do something for me, I do something for you, I do something for you, you do something for me. It's why Ben Franklin is credited with this saying, like, if I moved into a new neighborhood, the first thing I would do is ask someone for a small favor. Like, hey, I need a pinch of salt. Can you help me out? A teaspoon of salt. Hey, I need a little bit of sugar, or I need some flour. Can you just help me out a little bit? And then once you get that gift, now it's easier for them to come and ask you for something. Oh, well, I helped them. Well, maybe they have it. And people just naturally move in that direction. And he's like, that's how you would get to know a lot of people. He's like, just go to all of your neighbors, right? Like literal proximity in that sense, but go to your neighbors and ask them for something, and you will start this relationship. And so I think that's probably what neighbor would have meant to most people at that time. And this guy's trying to make sure that he has got it down, so he doesn't have to expand his set of relationships, right?
Looking for the loophole. That's what
Looking for the loophole, right? And Jesus basically says, oh, here's somebody who has nothing to offer this man, can't do anything, won't do anything. He even leaves. Who does he leave a card or something like, hey, I'm the guy who did this and saved your life? I don't know about that. He told the person at the inn or wherever it is that he's staying, hey, I'll come back and pay whatever else. So he's sort of handing it off. He does what he can, not what he can't. He doesn't stay forever. So it's not like we're supposed to go around saving people. We don't save anybody. We just have our role to play in the process. But there was nothing that he was going to get back from this guy. There was no reciprocal, and it was somebody that he never should have helped in the first place by the rules of the culture at the time. But he said, you know what? I'm going to help this guy. So you go and do likewise. A neighbor is the one who shows mercy. Now, of course, I have that one story, which, we had some major incident across the street here where I'm prayer walking around like our campus and just.
Oh, right.
And then these girls come out screaming, somebody stabbed their mom, and I'm like, oh my God, this is like, and they're looking for help, and I'm like, do I really want to get involved with this?
These aren't my neighbors.
Yeah, they're not my neighbors. These are the church's neighbors. They're not my neighbors.
Let's see how I can wiggle myself out of it. Where's the loophole, huh?
I was literally praying, and I had actually prayed, God, help us serve our neighbors, or something like that. Like I had been doing that, because when you walk around, if you look, you'll see needs. You'll see opportunities, and I think we just generally don't take advantage of those. And so I was thinking about that, praying about that, and I round the corner and I get a little bit down the street, and they're screaming for help, like literally, like blood curdling kind of screams. This woman was stabbed, and they're looking for help, and I'm like, well, why aren't you in there? Like,
Yeah.
So I eventually get in there. It's pretty gruesome and just messy, and we made sure the guy was gone already, and thought this woman was dead, but she like randomly started moving, and I was like, oh my God, she's alive. So then we try to help. I'm praying and I'm talking to her. I didn't know. I had already seen the ambulance and everything down the street. There was not any way for me to really provide medical care to this woman. I just kept talking to her and trying to bring her back, sort of. Actually, I haven't checked on her in a while, or the girls, the family across the street there. But you do what you can. I couldn't do much else except pray and tell her to hang in there for her girls. And I did find her at some point in a hospital, visited her. She did not look like she was in great shape.
Mm.
But, that was, and there was somebody here that found out about the story and came up to me and was like, that's literally like the Good Samaritan. I was like, yeah. And man, the resistance to just keep walking was very strong. Just keep, no. I mean, it's like the New York thing, you're walking and you walk fast. Why? Because if you don't, people will stop you, or, you don't know where you're going, then you're an easy target, right? Like, oh, they can be easily led astray somehow.
Mm-hmm.
So you just go. Somebody's talking to you, no thank you, no thank you, no thank you. Like we had this craft fair. If you're ever at big events like that, we have these children's books, and we have tables occasionally at these things, and people don't want to engage because they know that is going to sucker them in, sort of, and so they're resistant. Don't want to be sold something, don't want to have to spend their money on stuff that they don't really want. And so we have all these little gimmicks to try and help with that. But, yeah, people are just tunnel vision, keep moving. It's a strong impulse. And for whatever reason in that instance, I actually followed where God was apparently leading. But the other hand, I just did this drive to see some folks that are dealing with some hard things out of town. They're members of our congregation, and while I was driving, there's always people on the side of the road, cars and everything, but there was one in particular where they clearly needed help, is what it seemed to me. Like it was like a mom and dad and a bunch of kids. I don't know how many kids, like 2 or 3, maybe 4 kids. And they're walking away from a vehicle. Like they're pretty far away. And I'm like, are they just looking for a bathroom, or they need help? And I was like, that's the problem with the side of the road now, is you're moving at like 70, 80 miles an hour. How do you stop?
Right.
It's like,
Without causing an accident.
It's a dangerous kind of thing. But, I did think about that, and I thought, oh, this is a Good Samaritan. And you do what you can, not what you can't. and I was literally on the road to help, right? Like, I mean, I was going to do something to help. Maybe it was helping our people, like our open arms people, and maybe that's more of that reciprocity, the people that you scratch my back, I scratch your back, the people you're already in relationship with, and this is a call to move outside that to whoever it is that needs your mercy and compassion that God puts in front of you. It's real easy to get ourselves out of that. We have, when you're at a church, there are a lot of people that come by looking for help, and you can get very jaded, very jaded. And like a month or two ago, I noticed I was getting kind of jaded, and I read some things that made me rethink those people that jade you. You know, they use it for drugs or alcohol, or they're making up a story, and you're like, you know, there's ways to get out of this, and they just, you know, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, kind of thing. And I just felt myself getting jaded and wanting to not be jaded, and started trying to, okay, you know what? I just got to I got to have $5 in my pocket at all times, because my generation, we don't have cash ever. How do you help somebody if you don't have cash ever? It's a process. Like, I've done, okay, well, I can bring you to Subway over here, or I can bring you to, and I'll buy you the food because I have a credit card or something.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also like a subtle, I don't really want to give you money because I don't know what you're going to use it for. Right?
Right.
So it's actually kind of like manipulation, control on our part when we do that. So I just said we gotta start carrying. I gotta carry like $5 always. Just hand it to people. Don't ask. And hey, God loves you, and have like a renewed sense of compassion. I was okay at it for a while. I got to get back into making sure I have it.
Unjade yourself.
Unjade myself, yeah, because we just live in a new time. You know, the people. I do think that America is dealing with an erosion of the middle class a little bit, and so things are not as rosy as they once were. As you know, America is sort of a prosperous place, but it is still pretty good. Poverty here is not poverty other places, even though it may be moving in the wrong direction. But most of the really, really poor people that you see that come to churches knocking, and, you know, not all of them, but enough of them, it's like they are going to just use it for drugs or alcohol, or you can't hardly believe anything they're saying. It's like, well, you know, there's a path out of this. Like, we can help you with that. And they don't always want that. They usually don't want that. And so it's like, well, why should I help them if they're just going to, you know? And then I was listening to this book, and I just said, you know what? Look at what they're doing. The people that are in these really, really bad situations and that kind of stay in these situations, I mean, they've got a story that they're not telling you, but a story of things that they can't get out of their head, memories, trauma, all this other kind of stuff. And I was convicted enough by this book that I'm like, you know what? If I give them $5 and they use it to get some beer, and that's what they need to drown out the demons sort of in their head, literal and figurative maybe, so be it.
It will get them down the road to another day, maybe. And
exactly.
And then the next day will be the day that something better happens, maybe.
And maybe just that, like, hey, I care enough to do this is enough, right?
Right. Well, like you said, the poor people in America aren't the same because a lot of the poor people that pull up in the parking lot drive a car. So
They're driving a car.
they're not, I know we do have a lot of homeless people in this country, but yeah, there's a working poor or even whatever you would want to call them that have possessions and things, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, and then just trying to help. I mean, I've talked to enough people that have really dug into helping the poor. And they're just, I mean, our expectations for normal for them
Mm-hmm.
is not what they want, nor in many cases are they even able to receive that. Like the way that they think and operate is just so contrary to the way middle class type people operate that you can't just pick them up out of it and put them into sort of like a normal life where you have, you pay your car insurance and you pay your property taxes and you do all this other stuff. Like, it just isn't a thing. Like, they just don't get it. They can't. They don't. They're too focused on the moment, and they just end up back in a similar place. Like, there's the real way out is more like discipleship, like walking alongside someone and helping them each time they stumble, and it's going to be a lot of times, and not getting frustrated and just giving up. I mean, they have to want it first of all, and just not giving up and keeping on, but at the same time also recognizing that you can only do what you can do. You can't do what you can't do. You can't do for them. You can't, right? So here's this guy. He sees somebody on the side of the road. He does what he can. He heals up the wounds, binds up the wounds, gets him to a place, and then he leaves. He actually leaves, right? He doesn't stay forever, right? He's like, here's my part. I'm going to do what I can, and then I'm moving on. So, and I think, we have this issue where a lot of people, the people that care the most about this, I think don't often they get into it because of their heart for it and wanting to fix this, injustice or evil or whatever it is that they think is behind it. And you can't. It's actually in the Old Testament and the New Testament. The poor you will always have with you. Jesus himself says the poor you will always have with you. And I think it was in Deuteronomy. I've been trying to listen through the whole Bible, like while I'm driving or walking or in the morning when I'm getting ready. And it says there once or twice, like, there's always going to be poor in the land. Always. And so we have to get used to that. And there are people that have very, very compassionate hearts, empathy, sympathy, whatever, however you want to frame that. But you can't save them. You can't fix it. You can't solve the problem. And if you get into ministry, that's you want to help. Typically people that become pastors. So I was one of those people. I have a tendency towards that. But if you don't deal with that and get free from it, it will destroy you. You can't just help people endlessly, right? Like, it has to stop. You have to do what you can and then back off and let them do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or not do. And if they don't, okay, fine. Well, I did what I could. I can't do any more. I'm not going to be a source of enabling for you. I'm not going to, that doesn't mean I won't help you again. It just means I'm not, okay, now I know your game. Right? So I'm not going to feel so bad about saying no to you. I'm not going to feel bad about, no, maybe it's time for another pastor or another church or something like that, right? But
or more real, it's like fix yourself, get yourself together, do those things that you don't want to do.
So, but that's where, like, you can't, just because you'll always have poor with you doesn't mean you stop helping.
Right.
I mean, in those two spots when Jesus says it, he's saying it against Judas, who is complaining that this woman, Mary, actually, I think it was, the one who was at Jesus' feet here in the Mary and Martha story right after the Good Samaritan in Luke. This is in John 12, I believe. Mary is so thankful that Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead, and she takes this super expensive ointment and just pours it all out on Jesus. Super expensive. And Judas complains, couldn't we have sold this and given the money to the poor? Right? Couldn't we have sold this and given the money to the poor? He's pulling on the heartstrings, right? Or at least that's his stated goal, to serve the poor. But in Scripture, it says he said this because basically he was jealous. He was in charge of the money bag, and he liked to help himself to it.
He just saw a bunch of money
Yeah.
poured, not down the drain, but in his mind, down the drain, basically. And that he couldn't get
his cut.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like government.
Yeah. Or I'm gonna go there, but recently they had the fires in California where these entertainers came together and had a concert, and all the money was supposed to go to help the people rebuild their homes. The people have not gotten any of the money.
Yep.
It got through all these people that took a little bit. Probably they don't even know where the money went. But yet it was there to help somebody. So they pulled a kind of a Judas on them, I guess.
I am increasingly convinced that, charity needs to be more personal. It just has to be, because when it's not, there is no accountability.
Right.
And I think where we are politically, culturally, politically, is a result of people beating the drum like Judas and then taking it all for themselves.
Right.
Like that's why people say, that's why Charlie Kirk started his thing, supposedly. He goes to a college campus and he's got a sign that says big government sucks. 'Cause it does. It absolutely does. The solution to poverty is not just to say we need bigger government to take care of more people's needs. No, there is nothing in here about anything even remotely like that. That doesn't mean that you can't come to some sort of agreement that this is how we're going to serve the poor, but you're certainly not going to do it without accountability, right? It's just not going to happen. You're not actually going to help the poor. And some of the poor don't want to be helped. And it's not like you're going to eradicate it either. Really, what you end up doing is you just hide them. Like New Orleans did when the Super Bowl came to town.
Yeah.
They spent like $70 million or something.
Oh, really?
Or was it $7 million? Or
yeah, that sounds more reasonable,
Yeah.
but who knows?
some ridiculous amount of money to basically house however many homeless people that they had in places that they didn't like, that were going to look bad for all the tourists coming to town. If they could have done so much more for those people, that if they would have just given them the money, or if they'd have built them each a little tiny house, or like you could have done. Instead, they bought this warehouse, which may have actually been $70 million. I may have been that much. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the fact that there's always going to be poor people should remind us to not get so worked up about fixing the problem, as if we can, But at the same time, it's not an excuse. It's a call. There will always be people that need you. Right? That's the right response to say there will always be people that need you, and that's why you're here. That's your job. You see somebody, your neighbor is the one on whom you have mercy. I don't know.
Yep.
It's so the political views on poverty tend to be, on one hand, that you have people that look at poverty and they go, oh, the injustice, the systemic injustice, the systemic problems, the way people manipulate the system for themselves and end up making it, they're essentially taking advantage of people that would otherwise do better. Well, that's not false. It's true. That does happen. You know, you look at Amos 8 in particular, but there's a bunch of other places in the Old Testament where they're railing against, they're telling people that God is really mad at the people that are taking advantage of people. You know, that they're cheating them, basically. They're making the I forget how the expression, but basically, like, you know, you would use scales to kind of figure out, like, okay, how much wheat or grain or whatever it is, and how much gold or silver. And it's something like making the shekel light or great, maybe, and basically you're forking over a ton of money, and you ain't getting nearly as much as you're supposed to. Actually, in Karate Kid 2.
Okay.
You ever see Karate Kid?
Yes, I have.
Okay, it's been a long time, maybe recently. I don't know.
Yeah, been every few years probably, but yeah, I've seen it several times though.
So Karate Kid 2, Daniel LaRusso goes to Japan, Okinawa, with
Mr. Miyagi,
and his dad is dying or something like that, and they go to this little fishing village that he's from, and his ancient rival, his arch rival, Sato, basically has taken over this village and all kinds of other things, you know, outside of that. And his nephew or something has come into town to do business with the locals for their crops. They have little farms, all of them have little farms.
Mm-hmm.
And I forget exactly how it unfolds, but basically, I think Daniel LaRusso is trying to help one of the farmers, and he knocks something over accidentally. But then you see that there's these weights on the scales to weigh down, like,
Mm-hmm. And they're made out of clay.
yeah, and they break on the, you know, as it falls down and everything, and all of a sudden it's exposed, and all the people go nuts and they start yelling and screaming at Sato's henchmen. That's what's going on when, you know, Amos is railing about this, right? It's unethical business practices that end up distorting the distribution of wealth, or, you know, that's probably fine. I'll just leave it at that. So that is the thing. I mean, people suck. They just do. And if you think that they're not screwing us left and right all over the place, then you're crazy. You're just not living in touch with reality. But then the other side would say, well, basically, why are you poor? Because you're lazy. Get a job.
And that's true too.
And that's true. And I can tell you that.
In some cases, yeah.
Yeah, people just are. You know, when you, instead of trying to solve injustice, you just provide for people, you do actually make people less productive, much lazier, much less willing to do for themselves. If you do for your kids too much, you end up making them helpless, right? Let Like what is I think like an egg, right? If you break the egg for the chick coming out of the egg, it'll die. But if you leave it and you let it struggle through that process and get out, it will live. We don't let our kids struggle nearly enough. Well, maybe I do. I mean, if you ask my kids, they probably say, "Oh yeah, we struggle plenty, Dad."
I don't think they have it that bad.
No, I don't think so either. I think they got it pretty good. But if you don't let them struggle, then they never, right?
Right.
You can destroy a person by doing for them. You absolutely can. And people need to be kind of pushed out into the world. You know, like, what is it, eagles maybe? Or they just
Push them out of the nest.
good luck. I hope you can fly. Right?
Robin Williams, fly, be free. And the egg just.
So it's both of those things. It's both. It's not one or the other. They are both important, and they both have their toxic extreme. So, and just the way that politics works and the kinds of dialogue that we don't have and the lack of accountability anywhere, I think push us again and again back to, what are you doing? Who are you helping and serving? How are you helping without hurting? There's actually a book, When Helping Hurts, that I haven't read in a long time. But we had a ministers group in a town that I was serving in 10 years ago or something like that, and they went through this book, When Helping Hurts, that we actually hurt when we help. Sometimes we hurt when we help. So how do we help without hurting? And you have too many people that are just like, ugh, bleeding heart liberals, these people are just terrible, they need to get a job, blah, 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 right? No heart. And then you got the people on the other side who have all heart and no brain. And they just, okay.
Yeah. They give you everything.
We're just going to do it. Oh, yes.
And next thing you know, they have nothing, and the person they helped has probably squandered it all. But yeah.
And then you get the people in the middle who often get played off toward one side or the other at different points. And
well, the thing that got me lately was when they were going through and slicing some of this funding out of the budget, right? They didn't even know where
USAID you're talking about?
Yeah, USAID. They were supposedly doing this good with this money, and but nobody knew where it was going. And then they started finding it, and some of it they stopped. No, we're not going to do this. And immediately the outcry was, you cut off that $7 million or $70 million, whatever it was.
And now this many people are going to die.
No. These people died already is the way they were saying it. The money got cut off yesterday, and these people are now dead. You've killed these people.
Mm-hmm.
Not you will. These people will now die. No, they're dead. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I can't. You can't. You sound just ridiculous.
It was $7 million or 70 or
I don't remember,
7 billion or whatever, and you end up helping 10 people, and it only actually cost you $70,000, and the rest went to fund somebody's vacation.
And they got one water pump in some village somewhere that may not even have wanted a water pump. I don't know.
So if you if it's the opposites have to advocate for the opposite, right? So like, if you are the bleeding heart liberal type, and you're outraged that, a handful of people died because we didn't get $70,000 somewhere, then you should be the one demanding transparency and accountability. You should be the one that went through with the scalpel and said, okay, I don't know who is this elected official that has an NGO that's making $70 million off of this. No, no, that's not happening. We're not funding, six-figure jobs for college graduates that don't actually know how to do anything except collect the money and hand it to people local. Like that's not a thing. Okay, the people that are bleeding heart liberals should be the most interested in accountability, and the people that are the most unwilling to have anything to do with government at all, those are the people that should be caring about the poor more than, okay, fine, you don't like it when the government does it, then do it. You show mercy. You go and do likewise. When Jesus is feeding the 5,000, right? He's got all these people there gathered, and his disciples are like, hey, Jesus, there are these people. There's a lot of them. Shouldn't we send them back so they can get to the towns and villages and get some food? And you give them something to eat. You have a burden. You have a concern about government doing it. Well, then you do it, right? Because it's not always simply, oh, they're just lazy.
Right.
Okay, well, what if they are? Are you willing to be in a relationship with them to try and give them something to live for, to try and encourage them and make them believe that they can do it? And, it's not, the simple answers are not the answers. They're just clever sound bites to drum up certain parties or supporters, right? Actually generating dollars for campaigns, right?
Mm-hmm.
And really that money would be much better spent just solving the problems and not looking to one opinion or the other to win the day. Actually, it was our mayor about a month ago now. He does this monthly prayer meeting one morning a month, like 8 a.m. You go down to this one place. We meet in a room and we talk a little bit about what's going on, and then we pray. And he said at the last one, he's like, too many people are looking to government to solve the world's problems. He's like, that's not the government's job. It's certainly not biblically. I mean, the government doesn't solve the problems. The government tries in an imperfect world with imperfect means and imperfect people to punish wickedness and reward good behavior. Actually, the rewarding of good behavior is not even, it's punishing the evildoers, the number one thing, because people are evil. All of us are. Jesus himself said it. And actually, he says it right after this in Luke 11. So he's like, where are the churches? The churches have failed, right? They've abdicated their responsibility, and they can do it. They did do it. Like, that's the thing, at some point there was a consensus in our culture. Like, there was a common set of values and particularly a common faith, despite our differences in denominations. And they just did stuff, but because it grew and grew and grew, they eventually, it became like, well, we can do this through the government. And of course, the government's always looking for a reason to pat themselves on the back. And they abdicated their role and gave it to them, outsourced it. The great outsourcing. I mean, that's the biggest critique I would have of the church, is we have essentially, and myself included, I'm just as guilty as anybody. We're trapped in this great outsourcing of responsibility. The government simply can't do it. They're not equipped to do it. And do we really, I mean, if you're a Christian and you think that it should be the government's role to do some of these things, and I'm not saying that there isn't a role, okay? But who gets the credit then? Do you really want people fawning over government for like, oh, thank God I got my check. Thank God I got my food stamps. Thank God I got whatever. Or, holy cow, that follower of Jesus Christ gave up significant resources and time and money and whatever else to help pull me up out of the situation I'm in. Which of those is what Jesus wants? Now, maybe you think that, oh, well, everybody's just kind of in, or you know, maybe you don't think it's important for them to get pointed to Jesus. Well, that's why the other side doesn't want anything to do with you, because you're the people who think everyone's just in just because God is love. No. The only way you get in is with Jesus, plain and simple. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. And so...
Kind of gotten off the Good Samaritan, but
No,
I guess the point is that, yeah, what you're saying is that we should be the ones doing that.
we are...
He didn't say, hold up right there, just stay still. I'm going to go run and get the government to come get you out of the ditch.
Yeah.
Or you know.
And even if you are right or whatever, like advocating for the government to have the role in doing this, that doesn't let you off the hook, which unfortunately is actually what happens a lot of times. Like, oh, well, I mean, I've seen this in Europe a little bit because I've been there. But people don't personally have care and concern for people in need because, well, isn't that what the such and such office of whatever government agency, that's what they do. Leave me alone. Right? That's why I pay taxes. Leave me alone. Is that the response? Jesus? No. There is not a political solution that actually, well, nothing gets solved until Jesus comes back, first of all. And neither one of those political solutions ultimately really are sufficient. And they both have their pitfalls that we have to be on guard for. But Christians were, I mean, the church exploded because they cared so much for the poor. I mean, among other things, there were a lot of things that they were well known for, but in a time when it was between 60 and 80% of the known world that they were in was poor, I mean, you better be good at caring for the poor because there's an awful lot of them. Not as much now, but that's not to say there aren't people in need. But they did such a good job that it pissed off the emperor. There's a point in, I forget if it's the 2nd or 3rd century AD, that they have this one emperor who's all mad that the Christians keep doing such a good job of caring for the poor. And he orders his imperial court to do it. Like, would you care for the poor? These Christians are making me look bad. It's kind of the vibe that I got from it. It's like, and they couldn't do it. They couldn't do it the same way. They couldn't do it with the love and the care and the concern and the accountability and the discipling, right? The challenging of people, right? I mean, yeah, Paul does say, it if you won't work, you won't eat. That's it, right? Mm-hmm. But he only says that because they are doing so much to help that he can say that. So it's, you know, we gotta figure out a way to do that better, I think. To ignore the noise of the dialogue, turn off Facebook, turn off YouTube. Well, don't while you're watching this. I mean, we want you to tune into us, but nobody else, okay? Yeah, get off all these things, shut it down. Don't get rage baited into, you know, the back and forth, because they're all stupid. They're all half answers. They're all not the full counsel of God, the whole counsel of God, the biblical understanding of what's really. Truth is messy. It's very messy. It's not black and white. Aside from Jesus, aside from clearly we're called to have a care and concern for how we solve that problem or how we address that problem, because, again, we're not going to solve it, actually. The poor you will always have with you, right? How we go about addressing those issues, people have different opinions, and they're not wrong. They're not all right, but they're not wrong. So, anyway, that's still the Good Samaritan, I think.
That Samaritan packed his bags and ran to another town.
Yeah, he's already gone. Good. Yeah.
You talk about that. I got things to do.
All right. Well, if you're still listening, man, this thing has been in the way probably the whole time. If you're still listening, God bless you. And that must mean you really like us. So make sure you buy one of these books here. Nobody's Nola, Nola's Icelandic Adventure, Nola's Nantucket Rescue is also out. And then, of course, Open Arms, Connecting People to Jesus. You can also get us on, you can make a donation at openarmslidell.org, openarmslidell.org. We would greatly appreciate it. Keep this conversation going, this ministry going, and if Scott has nothing else to add, we'll catch you later.
That's it. I'm good.
That's it.
We didn't solve anything, but we know who our neighbor is.
What are you talking about? We solved all the world's problems today. Taste and see that the Lord is good. Ice cream is sweet, but Jesus is far sweeter. Hopefully now you know who your neighbor is.